So let's look at an example where we are having to use this sohcahtoa I've been talking about, and I've just noticed I've made a mistake here. So I'm going to change that to an A. Sohcahtoa. So let's imagine that the question is find sine theta and cos theta. Theta, this symbol, is another Greek letter. So we need to find the sine ratio and the cosine ratio. Right? Well, I told you it was really important that we're very clear about which angle we're speaking. So we're talking about this angle, and it would already be useful to identify which of the sides is what. So one thing I can already say straight away is that this longest side here, that side, that is the hypotenuse. I know that's the hypotenuse because it's the longest side, but also it's the one that is opposite to the right angle. Right, now, I also know that opposite to this angle is that side here. So that side is the opposite side. And I also know that this is therefore the adjacent side. Adjacent meaning next to. Okay, next to this angle is either the hypotenuse or the adjacent, which is here. Right? Okay, so we're going to be using sohcahtoa again. We're given the adjacent. The adjacent is 4. And we're given the opposite, which is 7 long. Okay? And if I look at these two letters, well, where do I find these two? Do I find them in the so? No, that's O and H. Do I find them in the ka? No, that's A and H. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Do I find them in the toa part? Yes, that's the opposite over adjacent. So I could find easily the tan ratio. But I'm supposed to find the sine ratio and the cosine ratio. Well, let's first write down what the sine ratio of theta is. According to this, it's the opposite over adjacent. Remind you, this is not the adjacent, of course not, and that's where this my mnemonic is actually useful, so you can avoid making mistakes. I know this must be the hypotenuse since there's an H here. So let's start that again. So I have the S, the O, and the H. That corresponds to this SOH here. So, okay. So I can see that I need the opposite, which I have here. That's 7. But I also need the hypotenuse. I don't have the hypotenuse, but I know that I can calculate it using Pythagoras. The square of the hypotenuse must be the sum of 4 squared plus 7 squared. That's 16 plus 49. 16 plus 49 is 65. Okay, and that's c squared. So I know that c must be the square root of 65. Right, now that I know this, I actually know also I can add this to my list here. The hypotenuse is square root of 65. So now I can easily calculate this. Well, opposite is 7 divided by square root of 65. That is my sine ratio. Sine theta is 7 over square root of 65, and I can take my calculator and calculate this, which I want to now. And now I need to find the cosine ratio. That will be easy. Cosine, according to cosine, is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Let's make that clear using the colors. Check it. C, A, H. Yes, that's the same as ka. Right? And so now I can fill in the bits here. The adjacent is 4, and my hypotenuse is the square root of 65. And I could take a calculator and work this out approximatively if I wanted to. Okay, but basically I've now answered the question using sohcahtoa.